you're still throwing your kitchen scraps in the trash, watch this video. As a gardener, there's a ton of stuff that we grow out here that doesn't even make it in the kitchen. It makes it into the compost pile because it's not the edible part of the plant. But even once you bring in that beautiful, juicy produce, so much of it ends up in a landfill, which is not where it should go, which is why in today's video, both Jacques and myself are going to give you 7 different ways you can use your kitchen scraps easily and boost your garden's productivity. Let's kick it off with by far the easiest way to deal with your kitchen scraps, and that's grabbing a shovel, digging down, not even that deep, maybe a foot or so, and burying them directly in the ground without breaking them down any further. This is the simplest thing you can do. Why? Because there's almost no effort. You don't have to do anything besides this and then cover them back up. And we actually ran one of the most popular experiments on our channel last year where we planted tomatoes over 6 different types of food scraps and garden waste buried directly underneath those tomatoes. And spoiler, they all worked pretty well, some better than others. You'll have to watch that video to find out. But the real secret here is the finer you can get these food scraps before you bury them, and the longer you wait for them to fully break down, the better off the fertility is going to be, because you're giving that bacteria, that fungal life, the roly-polies, the insects, time to actually break it down into material that plants can use.
Speaking of insects, one of the most powerful composting insects out there is the humble worm. Whenever I lay materials on my bed, the worms will totally break it down in no time and return it to the soil. But what's even easier if you don't want to set up your own compost bin is to do something like this. This is like a DIY subterranean worm tower. Now all this is essentially a container in the ground that you could add your food scraps to. So what I could do is grab some of my gross kitchen compost here, just like that, layer it in there, and then cover it up with some browns. In this case, I have shredded paper goods just from shipping packages. You could use straw, shredded paper, cardboard, whatever you have on hand, as long as it's nice and brown. And that will be the combined food source and bedding for those worms. Now, what they are going to do is eat all that material up, go back throughout this bed and poop all over the place, giving me plenty of fertilizer. So let me show you how easy it is to put one of these things together, because it's not hard. It's not expensive. 2 options for you. The first one is the easiest, something that you can just get off the shelf, and that is an irrigation valve cover. You could get this at any hardware store or irrigation supply place. It has that sturdy built-in lid. All you have to do is bury it in the ground and start adding your scraps. The only thing I don't like about it is that it is an open bottom, so soil can work its way up and clog this whole system up. That's why if you wanted to get serious and also build something bigger, you could get any old bucket. This is, I believe, a 2-gallon bucket, and then drill some holes in it. All these are 1/2-inch drill bit holes all across the bucket so that the worms could get into this from any direction. This offers more pathways in, and having a bottom is also great because it stops the soil from coming in. Now I did do a slightly bigger hole on the bottom, but it's honestly not that big of a deal. Again, you want to make sure you have something with a lid so you could cover this, because you don't want your worms to cook in the sun. So that's it. You just bury this in the garden, start layering in your browns and your food scraps, and the worms will do the rest.
If you're an apartment dweller and you don't want to deal with the worms, or you don't have the space to bury in ground, something like this could work. They make really short work of kitchen scraps. It's a countertop composter. It's an electric device. This one's called a Lomi. And technically, they don't actually make what a gardener like myself would consider to be true compost. What they do is you put your kitchen scraps in, it basically dries them out and grinds them into a fine powder or flake. And that can then be added to the soil, and it'll just break down very quickly into true nutrients for your plants. So it kind of just like hyper speeds up the process that I showed you earlier on, where you bury the food scraps directly in the ground. But sometimes these can be a little bit pricey, and if you have a ton of food scraps, they don't work that well. But this next method isn't very expensive and works well no matter how many food scraps you have. But before we get to that, we have an exciting giveaway from the sponsor of today's video, Hoselink. It's no secret, I'm a huge fan of Hoselink here at Epic Gardening. I've been using this exact hose reel in my front yard ever since I first bought this property about 4 years ago, when this was nothing. It was just a bunch of wood chips, and now I use it almost every single day to water everything you see here in an 82-foot radius, because it's a retractable hose reel. Probably one of the most time-saving watering tools that has ever been invented since maybe the watering can itself. I can hear you asking, what are we giving away? What is Hoselink giving away? Well, we're giving away one of these, of course, a retractable hose reel, 82 feet in any color you like. We've got a Birdie's Bed, 29 inches tall, one of the big boys, in any color you like. $500 to Hoselink store and $150 to our own Epic Gardening store. So it's about $1,000 or more of value you can use to completely deck your garden out for next spring. And be sure to check Hoselink out because they don't only sell these, they sell some really awesome solar outdoor lights, as well as a ton of different implements that extend on the classic nozzle system. So you can basically turn this into a watering tool that does pretty much anything you could want. The giveaway ends October 29th. The link is in the description. Check that out, and back to our kitchen scrap hacks.
This next one is kind of an odd one out. It's not necessarily composting, technically it's fermentation, but it is adjacent to composting and it's called Bokashi. The cool thing about this method is that it could handle literally anything. You could put meat in here, you could put cheeses in here, dairy products, all of it is fine. The Bokashi bacteria will fully break that down and make it available to the soil life to further break down, which is what compost does in the long run. So what this is an airtight bucket. Bokashi is an anaerobic process. That means no oxygen is involved. In fact, as little oxygen as possible is the preferred thing to do here. Now I started this one about a week ago. So what I'm gonna do here is open this up. It's got a fancy lid here to suction it down. You could see some of that gross white material. That is the growth of the bacteria in there. Now, what this smells like is very odd to describe. It kind of smells like pickles. And I see that everything in here looks like it did originally. I have bread in here, I put cheese, pasta, all sorts of goodies. It doesn't smell like gross. I don't know how I would describe it necessarily. Now, the nice thing is once you put the lid on, you don't smell anything at all. So the way this works is that you add your scraps, and you could be heavy-handed because as you're adding stuff to this, you don't want to open it on the regular. So I'm gonna go ahead and just dump a whole pile in here, just like that. And then you take your Bokashi bran, that is sort of the seed, if you will. It is the inoculated material where all that bacteria, I believe there might be some fungal elements as well, lives. So just like that, you throw your scoop right on top of that. And then this lid helps you squish it all down. So that's what it looks like on the inside, all frosted up. I squished this down. And now the cool thing is that if you leave this for 2 weeks, it should be fully fermented and ready to add directly into your garden, whether you dig that in, add it to your compost pile. This is already pre-broken down. It will break down much faster than just adding the scraps directly to your ground. So who is this for? It's for somebody who doesn't have a lot of space. They don't have the ability to have a compost bin. Maybe you're in an apartment, you don't generate that many scraps. You could just ferment them all down, break them down beforehand. And as an added bonus, you could open this tap here and you'll get this delicious liquid that you could use as a fertilizer directly. So that is the Bokashi method. Now, if you do have more space and you don't want to go down something like this, then actually chickens are a great way to break down and compost your material.
I just gave the coop a nice power wash. The hens are feeling happy and it's time to give them kitchen scraps. This is one of my favorite ways to use kitchen scraps. If you have hens, I think it's super effective for a few different reasons. Number one, it gives them a nice variety in their diet. Yes, you have to give your hens chicken feed that is approved for them to eat because that's the way that their diet is balanced. But adding some of this, it's just such a great way to add a little more nutrition and excitement to their days. Don't worry too much about things they should or shouldn't eat. I find that hens tend to sort out what they don't want pretty quickly and they'll just leave it untouched. Now, the reason I like it is not only does it save your kitchen scraps from going to the landfill, but what are they converting those scraps into? Eggs and manure. And that chicken manure, which will show up in the bedding over there and will be cleaned out every 6 months or so, makes its way through the composting system that I have in my yard. And it really helps to supercharge heating up a compost pile, breaking it down, and of course, adding all that nutrition back to the soil.
There is the true classic tried and true option that everyone's been doing probably since the dawn of us growing food in the first place, and that is just simply making a compost pile. Now this is a compost bin system. I have 2 of them and they're about 3 foot by 3 foot, which is big enough for this pile to get nice and hot. Now if you don't know anything about compost, all it is taking your green materials like your kitchen scraps or garden cuttings, putting them into a large pile, and then layering in some sort of brown or dead material like wood chips. If you keep doing this until you build a large enough pile, that pile will get hot. In fact, mine right now is sitting at 115 or 10 degrees, and that is pretty dang warm considering the ambient temperature right now is like 70. So this is the best way to break down a lot of material, especially if you have a big garden. You're going to be adding in trimmings from your garden as well as your kitchen scraps. But what if you don't want to do any of the things we just said, and you just have a bunch of kitchen scraps? Could you possibly regrow those?
What if I told you one of the best ways to get rid of your kitchen scraps is to not get rid of them at all by regrowing them, but they don't all regrow equally. So to find out which ones work and which ones don't, check out this full guide right here. Good luck in the garden and keep on growing.